Welcome back to the Inside Athletic Training Podcast. With 20 years in the minor leagues, stops with the Blue Jays, Mets, and the Angels, multiple Athletic Trainer of the Year awards along the way, this year, Bob Tarpey made his debut in the major leagues. Today, he joins us to talk about that journey and what his rookie season at the top level of the game has been like so far. Enjoy the show. All right, Bob, welcome to the Inside Athletic Training Podcast. Very excited to have you on to talk all things your career, first year in the big leagues with the Angels, and a lot of things athletic training as we do on the show. To get started today, I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself to our listeners who might not be familiar with you and your career. So talk us through, where did it start for you? Where are you from? How'd you break into athletic training? And when did the passion for this profession come into play for you?
Absolutely. Well, first, thank you very much for having me on. This is, quite an honor. So, but Bob Tarpey, I grew up in York, Maine, great town in southern Maine, about 40 miles south of Portland. Early on in life, I developed a strong love for baseball. My dad helped get me into that. Played throughout my, entire youth, and even got to play in college at the University of Maine at Presque Isle. That's a big reason I went to that school. And quickly learned that I probably was not going to go on to the next level as a player. So, but, I learned about athletic training, at the end of my freshman year in college, and realized that I could continue to work in baseball and be on the team, just not on the field. So developed a strong interest, for athletic training. We had a great, program up there at the University of Maine at Presque Isle, great instructors, and great classmates too. I really enjoyed that, but quickly fell in love with athletic training and, helping athletes, get back to doing what they love. So, that's kind of the short end of it. I love baseball, just couldn't hit the curveball, so.
That's right. You and all of us too. Same experience for me and many of our listeners here. Well, Bob, did you have a time, like your experience in college, was there injuries on your end that drew you to the athletic training room? Did you know that was something you wanted to do when you started college? Because like many of us, baseball is the focus in terms of playing. People like myself found ourselves in the training room because of injuries, and you learn kind of, hey, it's pretty cool what this person does to contribute to the team. I think that's something I could do. What was kind of your experiences in the training room as an athlete?
Yeah, as an athlete, playing baseball and football and hockey at York High School, we didn't have a full-time athletic trainer per se, so the coaches kind of took on that role. Got to work with those guys and see what they do. But, once I got into college, obviously playing baseball, there was treatment time. You go in, you do what you can to get better. I didn't have any specific injuries that drew me in like a lot of people. But I did have, my first day in the athletic training room had, a unique injury with a basketball player. He ended up needing to get a emergency fasciotomy. This is like my first shift. In college, I'm like, wow, this is great. I got to go to the hospital and spend time, see the doctors work so it's not like that every day, but, I just quickly fell in love with how many people it takes to, help get one guy better. So
right.
I enjoyed that.
Yeah. And when you finished up school, did you know it was baseball? I know you had some work experience prior to jumping into pro sports. Talk about that and when you kind of realized baseball was obviously a love of yours, but it was something you want to work in as well.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. When I was in college, this was back when they did the internship programs, which I think are great. Anybody that can go out and intern and, get hands-on and see if they like it. So I applied to a lot of different major league clubs, just sent my resume blindly. And then I sent my resume to a bunch of minor league clubs based on the logos and how I liked them. So, and I heard back
some good ones out there.
Yeah, there are some great ones. And I heard back from the Carolina Mudcats, athletic trainer named Jeremy Moeller. I said, yeah, sure, come on down. And I went down to Zebulon, North Carolina, summer of 2002. And, got to work with those guys every day. Matt Holliday was on that team, Clint Barmas, and had a lot of great, the staff was fantastic, and, they took me on one road trip, but that was the best, summer of my life. And once I did that, I realized, like, this is it. This is what I want to do. be an athletic trainer in professional baseball for sure.
Right.
And then that opened up an opportunity the next year. George Poulos was a head trainer with the Blue Jays at the time. Maybe he was the assistant at the time. He was a head trainer at the time, I think. He was looking for a spring training intern athletic trainer, and my professor got me onto it. I applied, interviewed with George, and I got the job. So I got to go down in 2003. Left school senior semester, and got to work with George. Got to work with guys like Roy Halladay, Carlos Delgado, Frank Catalano, Mike Bordick, who's from Maine, where I'm from, and I mean, that was just I was starstruck. I was awesome, walk in and see these guys, but I just love being around the game. I love watching the game. I love the intricacies. I love listening to hitting coaches talk to the hitters and say, "Man, I wish I knew this when I was a kid. Maybe I could have been special like them, but probably not." But so that's how I got my foot in the door with athletic training in baseball. After I got out of undergrad, I went to the California University of Pennsylvania. Now it's called Penn West. I got my master's degree there, and after that, I ended up working with the Navy for a little while in Newport, Rhode Island. Worked as an athletic trainer, and I got to work with Navy SEALs and Army Rangers. And in Newport, it's the Naval War College, so they have they have people from all different disciplines, people from other countries coming over to go to that war college. And I got to work with guys from SEAL Team 7, and like I said, Marine pilots, and that was incredible. And it was, they treat their bodies the same as a professional athlete, but I still wanted to be in that professional baseball setting. So left there, and then George Poulos, obviously had a history with him, and they ended up hiring me rookie ball for Pulaski, Virginia in 2006, which was best hour of my life. So
yeah, that's awesome. It's quite the road. I'm sure a lot of challenges along the way. I do want to kind of dial into your relationship with George. Anyone that's been with PBATS, legendary athletic trainer. I met George, I think 2010 in Toronto for an event there with the Blue Jays. He's just done so much in the game, mentored so many people now with the Atlanta Braves, obviously. You and Mike Frostad and George, and so many connections, which are really cool to see from the outside. What was it like working with George back then? He's grown a lot and changed a lot, I'm sure you have as well, but what was he like as a mentor? And what does he kind of mean to your entire career at this point?
I mean, I don't even think I could put it into words how much George, means to me. And I'm sure a lot of people would say the same thing, but George is just a true professional. He gave me one of the best pieces of advice I've ever gotten. When you're treating an athlete, you treat them as if they're one of your family members. How would you want, your sister to get care, or your mom, or your wife, or your kids? And I still take that with me to this day. But George is just he's a pro. He'll do whatever it takes, to make sure that the athlete gets what they need. And always reliable, but he keeps a great atmosphere in the training room. Still have a lot of fun with the guys, but I just you watch him work, and like, man, I want to be like that someday. And I'm still aspiring to get to become as good as George. If anybody that has worked with him knows what I'm talking about. But he and just as a person, I remember I hadn't passed my clinical exam, and I remember going to his hotel room in Boston, and we went through the practical together, and then he gave me all of these tips and things to study and everything, and and then I ended up transitioning from the Blue Jays to the Mets. He was a big part of that. He made a lot of phone calls for me. So since I met George in 2003, I mean, it was probably the luckiest thing that could have ever happened to me, in baseball. It's just I can't speak more highly about him. So.
Yeah, one of the best guys, as I mentioned, and you got a lot of time with George and the Blue Jays. I want to dive into that for a bit. A lot of people might think you're in the big leagues. It was a quick and easy road, pretty linear, just straightforward. You've had a ton of different stops, not as many organizations as some people, but for more than 14 years with the Blue Jays. So talk about. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. what you thought your career path would be like when you got there in
Mm-hmm.
2006 compared to what it did turn out like, and how, additionally, just the ability to stay patient. It's been a long road, 20 years to get to the big leagues. Talk about that experience and what it kind of taught you along the way.
Yeah, no, great question. So in 2006, when I joined the Blue Jays, I thought, geez, I'll be in the minor leagues for a couple of years, and then I'll get to the big leagues, and I'll have this great career, and I'll have a ton of money, and drive an Escalade, and uh, that's just not reality. It's not life.
Yeah.
So, but I did get a lot of great experience, in Pulaski, and I got to work with Mike Frostad. It was my first coordinator, who's now the head trainer here. So, that's kind of come full circle. I'll be able to work with your mentor every day. But, the funny thing, I was with the Blue Jays for 14 years. I never pictured being with another organization. And, and I think there was a comfort level there. Working with guys like George, with guys like Frosty, Jeff Stevenson,
Yeah.
Boone Chong, all the, the legendary guys over there. Jose Ministral came in. He was fantastic. Drew McDonald. But, and I think I was kind of scared to go to, another organization or, step outside my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
But in 2020, they downsized, some teams. I ended up going over to the Mets, and it ended up being one of the best experiences, of my life. I love being with the Mets. But the best thing it did is it opened my eyes. You can change an organization, and things are going to be okay. So just to step outside that comfort zone, where I had been with the Blue Jays for decade and a half, and and then so transitioning from the Mets, which I had no intention of leaving. I love that organization, love the people there, and but Mike Frostad recruited me over here, and I jump at the opportunity to work with Frosty anytime. So, and then we talk about, the patience of it, right? So before I got the call from Frosty in December, I had just learned I was getting my 20-year minor league service award.
That's
so
right.
20 years in the minor leagues. And, a lot of people say, it's a long time. You can do it, other things, but you got to love it. And, I do. And it's mostly because of the people that I'm around, and I've been blessed to work with, at the Jays, the Mets, and then now here. So, once you set, I kind of set my goals. I wanted to be a major league athletic trainer, and that was from day one. And 2003, when I first stepped foot, in Dunedin, Major League Spring, I was like, I want to be a major league athletic trainer, and that was my goal. And I kept pursuing it, and I had a lot of great people in my corner, from George, Frosty, numerous other, Charlie Wilson with the Blue Jays, and then my wife, who is a superstar and a rock star, and very supportive. So. Yeah, I think just sticking with it and having some grit. You need to have it.
Yeah.
In this profession, the days can get long, but the time can go quick.
Mm-hmm.
You got to enjoy it. I love baseball and all things baseball.
Yep.
And so.
Yeah. No, that's very true. And then there are some guys who take a year or two and they're in the big league. Some guys never have any minor league experience. Yeah. It's a different road for everybody, and we're all, in the place we're supposed to be. I believe in that. So really cool to hear you kind of talk about your story there. Well, now currently the assistant athletic trainer with the Los Angeles Angels, big leaguer, set out for that goal, accomplished it. Amazing work, well deserved by you. What kind of adjustment have you faced this year? Number one, being with a new organization, where I'm sure with the Jays, when you moved up each year or moved to a new spot, you knew everybody, from George to Frosty to all the players. You probably came up with players who followed you at each stop. What was it like being kind of thrust into the big league job and an entire new organization? What was kind of the first month or so like for you?
Yeah, well, it's a great question, because, the first thing I didn't want to, make any big waves. I just wanted to go in. Right. I wanted to kind of fly under the radar, do my job, be available, and just kind of observe. I think that's when you transition to a new organization, that's the biggest thing you can do, is observe, see what's going on, because there's probably a lot of good things that are happening. Mm-hmm. And then you just, you show up and you do your job, and you just slowly get to know people. You can't do it, in one day. So, and it takes time to build those relationships with the players and the staff. And, so you just need to be available with them. And if you get the opportunity to work with somebody, do the best that you can. And then all of a sudden, they keep coming back and asking for more. So, that's the biggest thing for me, I think, is just, being patient, but just working as hard as you can every day and just trying to make everything around you a little bit better. And that's going to make the transition a little bit easier. I was fortunate where, I'd been here for the past 2 seasons, director of minor league medical. Frosty brought me over from the Mets, and a lot of different experiences. I got to work on leadership qualities and help younger athletic trainers advance in their careers, and then all of those different things combined with being a minor league athletic trainer for, I think, 16 seasons, in a dugout. You combine all that and you bring it up to the major league level, and you still utilize all those skills that you've learned over the years. And that's the biggest thing too, is like, it's the same injuries, you just have a lot more resources up here, right? We have a bigger team, bigger staff, we have a lot more modalities, things like that, access to doctors, imaging and whatever it is that we need.
And I'm curious, with that job as director of minor league medical with the club for the previous 2 years, were there any kind of, I guess, for your whole minor league career, what were the most useful kind of skills, maybe not necessarily just skills with your hands as an athletic trainer, but soft skills or feel for the athletic training room? What did you take most from your 20 years in the minor leagues when you got to the big leagues that you thought was most helpful in kind of finding your way there?
Yeah, it's an awesome question, because for younger athletic trainers, and myself included, when you first get in, to the training room in baseball and you're working with guys, you think it's those, it's that manual therapy skill set or the rehab skill set, or, the diagnostic examination skill set. And the longer that you're in it, you realize that the most important thing is being a good teammate. You got to help everybody around you. You can't just, look out for number one and hope that you're going to, advance. And because it's just never going to happen. When I was a coordinator, with the Mets, and then came over and be director with the Angels, that I would harp on that on day one. You have to be a good teammate. You got to look out, for the person next to you. And if anybody's going to try and put themselves ahead of somebody else, then you're going to be doing it on your own, because I'm not going to try to help you advance. But just being there for other people and making the whole room better is the by far and away the most important thing you can do.
Yeah.
So.
And when you look at the actual games being played and what you're viewing and the importance of winning now at this level compared to the development at the lower levels in the minor leagues, is it a different feeling in that dugout and in the training room and on that plane? And how can you explain that to someone who's maybe in your position 5 years ago, looking to break into Major League Baseball and get their shot? What's it feel like compared to a minor league game?
Yeah, well, that's another great question, and it is. You live and die with every pitch, right? So every pitch can mean a whole lot, one way or the other. So there is a lot more on the line, when you're in a major league dugout, and you can feel it. You can feel it from the crowd. You can feel it from the coaching staff. There's a lot more people there, and you feel it from the players too, because it's their career. This is their livelihood. This is how they're going to take care of their family. So. Yeah, you almost have to experience it, in order to, because, when you're in the minor leagues, it's a lot about player development. Of course, you're trying to win, and, winning's, always great, but it's not paramount. And up here it is. And, you see that on you say day-to-day basis, but it's pitch-to-pitch basis,
Right. Everyone's fighting for their lives out there.
Everybody's fighting for their lives out there,
Yeah.
And, it's the same thing, with athletic trainers. We're not trying to miss, anything, and that's why it's so important to work with, so closely with the other athletic trainers, physical therapists, coaching staff, a lot of different eyes on people. So the more information that you can get, the better you can make a decision to either keep a guy in the game, or get him out. So, and that's the biggest thing is, if you're taking a guy out of the game, it's detrimental to the team at times. So.
Right. And there's more eyes on that. There's people writing about the team. There's fantasy sports. There's gambling. There's all these things that really are paying attention to every move you make, and articles being written about you guys. It's a different level of scrutiny that you're dealing with. So it's always interesting to hear guys' thoughts as at their first year in the big leagues. Well, Bob, I want to shift gears a little bit and talk kind of about the actual work you guys do and kind of how things have changed over the years. The past 20 years, I'm sure so much about how you treat many different injuries have changed, whether people are not using ice anymore from the most basic level, or just things have changed so much. Technology, AI, innovations. Is there like a biggest shift you've seen in how baseball approaches just caring for athletes? I know it's a very broad question, but I guess what I'm asking is how much have things changed, and how you actually work in the athletic training room compared to when you first got started? Resources, modalities, tools in there, what the room looks like. Talk us through 20 years ago, what it looked like for you.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great quote. We could probably have a whole podcast just on that, right? I mean, there's so many differences, right? But, a lot is so different, but a lot is so much the same.
Okay.
We have a lot of new modalities. We have a lot more staff now, in the major leagues. Even in the minor leagues, you have, more staff and hands and things like that. So, so the biggest thing for me when I first came up was, it was me. I was by myself. I had to figure this out. I had to get all these guys treated. And, it's probably one of the best ways to learn, to figure it out on your own. You don't have somebody there you can rely on, or, you're the guy. You got to figure out what's going on and get the information out to everybody as quickly as possible. So, but I think, going from the minor leagues and, you're working with the guys. And I used to tell people too, like, I was by myself as an athletic trainer in the minor leagues, and my assistant trainers were, I think I had like a Mark Pro and another maybe stim unit or something like that, right? So you'd have three guys come in and they're already, I got to get my rehab and go out and do stuff. All right, well, you get this modality, and I'm going to work with this guy. And then when you're done with him, okay, you're going to switch, you're going to go on this modality, and you just kind of figure it out like that, right? And just the best way to utilize your time, because you don't have all day with these guys. They got to go out and they got to practice. They got to go to meetings, things like that. In the big leagues, you can spend a little bit more time, with the guys, but you still try to be as efficient as possible because they have a lot that they need to do throughout the day on the field to get better. So, I think it's identifying, now, what is their biggest restraint, and how quickly can we work on that and get them better to go out and play in the game. And then the more, I think the biggest thing that changed for me, and noticed this more so as a coordinator, was, decreasing the time to diagnosis, right? So when we were younger, you'd have a guy, I'm a shoulder sore, this and that, and you could sit on it for a little while. You had bigger rosters in rookie leagues, so you had plenty of guys to back it up. So then, but as you advance, you get to the AAA level, these guys, you're in the minor leagues, but these guys could be in the big leagues next day. So you got to make sure that they're in good health and make sure that they don't get hurt up there. It costs the team a lot of money. So that was the biggest emphasis for me, to decrease the time to diagnosis, right? Gotcha. Let's get these guys, do your exam, get the information to your doctor, and, if there's any modalities or anything you need to get, and then we can get that information and then come up with a plan. And I think that's the most important thing. And it's really done well here at the major league level. Obviously we have access to doctors and, everything that we need, like, snaps of fingers. So, because that could be the difference between, going from day to day to, missing, 4 to 6 weeks. So, which means a lot, up here. So,
sure. Yeah, that's interesting. And I want to dive into kind of the aspect of it's just you at certain minor league affiliates. I've heard so many stories from the older generation, like Ron Porterfield told me once that he was driving the van, he was making the soup, he was literally doing everything. So talk about those early days in the minor leagues. Share a bit like what your responsibilities were. You weren't just the athletic trainer, like you were doing way more.
Yeah, well, for sure. And I had no idea coming into baseball that this is how it was. But we were in charge of, on the road, team laundry. We didn't have to do the laundry per se, but we had to bring it back to the hotel. You make sure it gets to the laundry, staff there, and they do it, and then bring it back to your room, and then you got to get all the stuff back to the guy. He did this every day. Funny story about that one day. We used loops. I don't know if anybody's seen this. You put all your clothes on a loop and you buckle it together, and everybody's stuff is in one thing. And we were in, I was in the Appalachian League, and one of the laundry ladies said, "Oh, all these clips were, getting in the way. So don't worry, I undid all of them." So I had to call all the players. This is before cell phones, and you could text everybody.
That's great.
Yeah, they had to come to the room and get all the stuff. But so that's a big part of it. We were the boots on the ground, so we were in charge of the travel. For all the players going to and from the one affiliate to the next, and there's a lot of movement in baseball. One guy gets hurt in the big leagues and it's a big chain effect for the minor league. So there was always guys coming and going or guys getting promoted and this and that. So that was a big part of that. I think those were the two biggest responsibilities. I think before my time, guys had to clean the locker room and put soup and peanut butter and jelly and things like that out. On the road, we did have to go to the grocery store and get a $25 budget per day to feed the whole team. So that was that got interesting.
Yeah, times have changed, and big leagues is probably treating you well compared to some of those days, but you obviously earned it. Well, back to kind of the work you guys do. Data and tracking technology is something that's changed so much. Curious, with a guy with so much experience, and with Frosty and Eric and all the guys there, how do you guys manage, the amount of data you have now and the access to tools and resources, AI, all that stuff, combined with just the general feel you have as a guy who's worked with athletes for more than 2 decades? How do you kind of let the data drive your decision-making, but also the human element of it as well?
Yeah, I mean, that's great. I'm actually glad you said that, data-driven versus, we're more data-informed, I guess. Okay. We still rely on our, hands-on, examination skills and things like that before, making a decision on paper. All the data is going to do is just going to, alert us that we need to go do further examination on the player. So, the biggest thing, we're really lucky here. We have an R&D department that we work with, and they put together these websites, and we can take all of our data, put it in there, crunch it, and they'll put it all on one page. And we'll have a really good snapshot of what the player looks like, from a movement analysis profile, or, even their pitching metrics and things like that. We can kind of match everything up. We can use it for workload and things like that. When we first get, to spring training, in February, we do assessments on the guys. So we'll do range of motion, we'll do strength, and we'll get all those numbers, and it gives us a good snapshot of where the guys need to be, throughout the season. So, if they do have an injury, we're rehabbing them and coming back, we can go back to those numbers and say, all right, this is where we want this guy to be before we get him back into the game, right? So, those numbers are really important, but also it's everything change. You can't just rely on that. You really can't. That's why I say we're data informed versus data driven, because we're not looking at a computer screen making a decision. Now we'll look at the computer screen and then say, okay, we got to go evaluate player X, and then we'll still use our skills that we've had forever, and work to get that player back as quickly as possible. So it's kind of nice because it just kind of helps shine a flashlight on where we need to focus, as a clinician. So, and I think it's only going to get better. I've already seen it, improve, vastly over the last, when did it come in? About 11, 12 years ago, it really started to pick up, and, it's great information, but we couldn't do it all by ourselves. You just can't. You can't, schedule the collecting time. You can't then collect all the data and then input all the data and then sit down and interpret all the data. And then you have to come up with a plan, and then you got to take action on it. So that takes so many different, people. That's why we work with our R&D department here, and they're awesome. And, they help decrease, again, kind of that time before we can take some action with the player. So.
Yeah, definitely different than, years ago in the minor leagues. And I think that just the resources big league teams have in terms of the staff and research teams, and just people way smarter than you and I, who are doing a lot of things number and data driven, which is really cool to see how it's changed the game. Well, Bob, want to get into a little bit of, not necessarily your personal life, but, you're in the game for more than 2 decades. You have a family. What's been your approach, kind of like raising young kids while doing so much work with clubs, and how's that kind of worked for you and morphed into the life you have? Well, I know it's got to be extremely difficult being away from family and kind of giving everything to the game.
Yeah, again, that's probably a whole other podcast that we can have, and it just goes back to, having that support. And I'm so lucky to have, my wife, Erin, she's, completely in on this ride, and she has a much harder job than I do. We have, beautiful 10-year-old twins, wow. Brady and Hannah, they're back in Massachusetts. I'm in Southern California. Okay. So, it's hard to be away, but thank God for FaceTime. Right. Right. And, the way that we look at it is, this is just the best way that, that we can provide, for our kids and, give them, the future and just give them all those experiences that, we want them to have, as parents. So, and you do your best, the best you can. So, when we were in Tampa, my family flew down there and we got to spend some time there. And my wife came out to California to visit. Got to go to Disneyland for the first time.
Yeah, not a bad place. Not a bad place where you're living right now.
No, the weather's just awful, isn't it? No, it's great. I mean, we haven't had a rain out all season, so knock on wood anywhere. But and we're going to Boston, soon, so I'll get to awesome. Bring my kids out for batting practice, and but for me, I mean, this was I was involved in this, job before I met my wife, and she knew what she was getting into. And I'm not saying it's easy for her all the time, because it's certainly not. She probably works harder than I do. But just you got to have that support system, but you also have to be support, from so far away. Sometimes it can be hard, but
right. Totally got to find a way, for sure.
Yeah, you got to find a way. Gotta make it work.
Wrapping up a bit today here, for a young athletic trainer just starting out, let's say yourself in 2006 or sometime, hoping someday to reach the major leagues, a goal you've accomplished. What's the best advice for them? You've talked about kind of feel for the athletic training room, not, just laying in the weeds for a bit, not getting in the way, causing a stir, stuff like that. What would you tell kind of someone you're advising who's just starting out in the game?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I've been fortunate to be in this situation where, I've hired young athletic trainers, and, you can see that, the deer in the headlights look. I think the best advice, that I can give them is, just take care of put yourself in a 5-foot circle, right? And you're in the center of that. If you just take care of everything in that 5-foot circle, no matter what it is, whether there's a player in front of you or there's something that needs to be cleaned up on the counter or organized, if you can concentrate on that, that's certainly going to help you get, through those, kind of hard days, and, trying to figure out, okay, what do I need to do? Just try to, don't look at the whole universe. Just look at, the spot in front of you and the job in front of you, and concentrate on that. And, the one thing you can't do is you can't do it all by yourself. You have to ask questions. You have to ask for help, and that's how you're going to learn. Right. So hopefully, all of the athletic trainers that I've had under me have learned from all of the mistakes that I've made. I've been able to kind of share that wisdom, with them. So, it's a grind, but it's a lot of fun. You got to be, like I said, I can't emphasize it enough. You got to be a good teammate. You got to be there for people. You go back to being more than just an athletic trainer. Sometimes somebody's going to come up and lean on you and just, pour their heart out, and you just, got to listen and be the best. Just got to be available for people. And I think, as long as you're available, and willing, to help people, it's great. And I think, one of the, the greatest compliment somebody can give you is to come up and ask you for help, whether it's a player, saying, I'm dealing with this. I want to get back on the field. Can you help me out? And, that's how you have to look at that. You can't look at it like, oh man, I got to do all this work. I got to write a report on this, or I got to do that. It's, you have to look at it like George said, like they're a family member. How would you want your family to be treated? So, and I think, for a young athletic trainer, go to conferences, go learn a new skill, and you're going to meet people there, talk to them, network, and just try and expose yourself to as many different experiences or situations in the game. If you're working as a minor league athletic trainer and you haven't been invited to big league camp, and just say, hey, I'm willing to come over and, help out on the bench and just pour waters for the guys all game. I don't need any meal money, anything extra. Just, do what you can to get those experiences and let people know that you want to help. And, all of a sudden, a lot of doors are going to open up for you. So,
that's great advice. I think, you're a testament to how persistent you have to be. And you've shown that method can work, and it's obviously well-deserved by you. Well, Bob, to finish up today, segment we have here called Extra Bases. So I'm going to ask you a few quick questions about your experiences in the big leagues this year. To kick it off with the first question, favorite stadium you've been to watch a game from the dugout?
Favorite stadium to watch a game from the dugout? That's a good one. I got to go with San Francisco.
Okay.
I got to go with San Francisco. Yeah. I'd never been there, and number one, the weather's great. It's cool. I like things cool, not too hot. But just a beautiful ballpark, and there's so many. I mean, Camden Yards, and we get to go to Fenway and then PNC Park soon.
Yeah,
I get to,
not a bad
work
list
at Angel
there.
Stadium. Angel Stadium's amazing. So
right.
Yeah, I got to go San Francisco. So we're having
that's up there with
pick one.
That's up there with some of the most popular answers. Definitely can't beat 65 and cool every night. But
no, you can't.
Similar thought here. Question number 2: what's your favorite city outside of the baseball going on and what you do? Favorite city, whether it's food or whatever you like to do. What's your favorite spot to visit?
Ooh, good question. Ooh, wow, favorite city. I'm gonna go with Seattle. I really enjoyed Seattle. And having the World Cup happen to be going on when we were there, but walking around that city, there's just so much to do. There's so much to see.
Yeah. Mountains in the ocean is a unique
mountains in the ocean.
There.
Going down to Pike's Market, walking around there, and smelling the fish and seeing the fish get tossed. That was a place I always wanted to go, and it didn't disappoint. So, yeah, I gotta go Seattle.
That's a good answer there.
Yeah.
And wrapping up today, Bob. This is going to be very recent for you. What was your kind of welcome to the big leagues moment? Was maybe standing on the line for intros, you hear your name, family there. What was that moment for you that you had this year?
Oh man, yeah, that's such a good question. I think obviously standing out there, for intros because that's coming. Your whole, once you get to the big leagues, that's it. But I think having my family on the field in Tampa and seeing the kids run around and, seeing players like Grayson Rodriguez come up to my daughter, give her,
that's awesome.
and just to have them, be a part of, what I do and see the people that I work with and have all the people that I work with come over and just make the experience great for them. That was so cool. That's awesome. It was incredible.
Really special moment there.
Yeah.
Well, Bob, thanks so much for all you do for PBATS, for the profession of athletic training. It's been great kind of following your journey through the league over the last 2 decades and working with you guys. We wish you, Frosty, and the guys nothing but the best of luck down the stretch here.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's great talking to you today, as always, Sam, and appreciate all that you do for us as athletic trainers. It doesn't go unnoticed. You always have our back, and we appreciate it.